On a cold morning in September 1888, London police released a woman from a jail cell. She'd been arrested the night before for being drunk in public. Nothing serious. They let her go around 1 a.m. Less than an hour later, she was dead. This is CrimeArchive channel for Unsolved Historical Mysteries stories. And before we talk about the killer everyone knows by name, Jack the Ripper, I want you to know the names of the people he actually killed. Because most retellings skip that part. We're not going to. Her name was Catherine Eddowes. She was 46 years old. People who knew her described her as intelligent, funny, and a gifted storyteller. She had a partner, she had a daughter, she had a life before she became a headline. Life hadn't been easy. Poverty rarely is. But she was a person, not a statistic. An hour after walking out of that jail cell, she became the fourth victim of a killer London still hasn't identified. Before her, there was Mary Ann Nichols, known to friends as Polly. She'd had 5 children. After her marriage collapsed, she drifted between workhouses and lodging houses, trying to survive one day at a time. There was Annie Chapman, a mother who had endured the loss of a child and watched her life unravel after the breakdown of her marriage. There was Elizabeth Stride, a Swedish immigrant who crossed countries seeking opportunity and ended up trapped in the same poverty that consumed so many in London's East End. And there was Mary Jane Kelly, the youngest of the 5. Only in her mid-20s, her murder would become the most infamous of them all. 5 women, 5 different lives. One thing connected them all. They lived in Whitechapel. To understand this case, you have to understand Whitechapel. In 1888, it was one of the poorest neighborhoods in London. Narrow alleyways, overcrowded lodging houses, factories belching smoke into the air, gas lamps struggling to illuminate streets swallowed by darkness and fog. Many residents lived hand to mouth. Some people paid only a few pennies for a bed each night. If they couldn't afford it, they walked the streets until morning. Crime was common, violence was common, desperation was everywhere. And in a place where so many people were struggling simply to survive, it was frighteningly easy for a predator to disappear into the crowd. Here's the detail that still unsettles historians. Catherine Eddowes wasn't killed after days of planning. She wasn't stalked for weeks. She was released from police custody less than an hour before her murder. If she'd remained in that cell just a little longer, she might have seen another sunrise. Instead, she walked into history and into the path of a killer. The first officially recognized victim was Mary Ann Nichols. Her body was discovered on August 31st, 1888. Her throat had been cut. At first, police believed it was another tragic act of violence in a dangerous area. Then, just over a week later, Annie Chapman was found murdered. Again, her throat had been cut. Again, there were signs of extreme mutilation. Police began to suspect they were hunting the same person. Then came Elizabeth Stride, then Catherine Eddowes, both killed on the same night. A night that would later become known as the double event. Panic spread through Whitechapel. Rumors exploded. The newspapers couldn't print stories fast enough. And then, on November 9th, came the final canonical murder. Mary Jane Kelly, killed inside her own room. The brutality of the crime shocked even experienced investigators. 5 women, 5 murders, and almost no evidence. But the killer didn't just leave bodies behind. He may have left something else. Letters. And one of those letters introduced a name that would become famous around the world. As fear swept through London, letters began arriving at newspapers and police stations. The writer claimed responsibility for the murders. One letter carried a signature, Jack the Ripper. Whether the real killer wrote it remains unknown. Many historians believe it was probably a hoax. Perhaps written by a journalist hoping to sell newspapers. Perhaps by someone seeking attention. But the damage, or success, was already done. The name spread everywhere. Suddenly, the murders weren't just local crimes. They were international news. The killer became a legend, a phantom, a character people were almost fascinated to fear. And slowly, the victims began disappearing from the story. The nickname survived. Their lives did not. Then came a letter unlike the others, known today as the From Hell letter. The writer claimed to have taken part of a victim's body, and attached to the letter was half of a human kidney. Was it genuine, or was it an elaborate hoax designed to terrorize the city? More than 130 years later, nobody knows for certain. After Catherine Eddowes' murder, police discovered a blood-stained piece of her apron. Nearby, written in chalk on a wall, was a message. The wording appeared to blame a specific ethnic group for the crimes. At the time, anti-immigrant tensions in London were already dangerously high. Officials feared the message could spark violence, so the police commissioner made a controversial decision. He ordered the message erased before sunrise, before it could be photographed, before it could be fully documented. The writing disappeared forever. To some historians, the decision prevented unrest. To others, it may have destroyed one of the most important clues in the entire investigation. We'll never know, because once it was wiped away, it was gone forever. Why he was never caught, Scotland Yard launched one of the largest investigations Britain had ever seen. Hundreds of officers, thousands of interviews, witness canvasses, door-to-door searches, bloodhounds, informants. Nothing worked, because the truth is something many people misunderstand. The killer didn't have to outsmart modern forensics. Modern forensics didn't exist. Today, investigators would collect DNA. They'd compare fingerprints. They'd review surveillance footage. They'd track digital records. In 1888, none of that was possible. No fingerprint databases, no DNA testing, no forensic laboratories. The killer wasn't operating against modern police. He was operating in a world with almost no scientific tools to identify him. And that may be the biggest reason he escaped. More than a century later, scientists believed they had finally solved the mystery. A DNA analysis conducted on a shawl allegedly recovered from Catherine Eddowes' crime scene pointed toward a suspect named Aaron Kosminski. Headlines around the world declared, "Jack the Ripper identified." But there was a problem. Other experts immediately challenged the findings. The shawl's connection to the crime scene was disputed. The evidence chain was uncertain, and over 100 years of handling could have contaminated any DNA that remained. The case was never officially solved, and the debate continues today. Over the years, more than 100 suspects have been proposed. A Polish immigrant, a doctor, a barrister, a sailor, even members of the royal family, according to some of the more sensational theories. Books have been written, documentaries have been produced. Researchers have spent entire careers trying to identify the killer. Yet after more than a century of investigation, no suspect has ever been supported by evidence strong enough to satisfy modern standards of proof. The mystery survives because certainty never arrived. After Mary Jane Kelly's murder in November 1888, the killings stopped. No arrest, no confession, no deathbed admission, just silence. Did the killer die? Was he imprisoned for another crime? Did he enter an asylum? Did he simply disappear into the crowd? Nobody knows. More than 130 years later, people still debate his identity. But maybe the most important lesson isn't about the killer. Maybe it's about the people history nearly forgot. 5 women lived difficult lives in a city that had already failed them long before a murderer ever crossed their path. They were more than victims. They were mothers, partners, friends, daughters, human beings. We still don't know who Jack the Ripper was, but we do know their names: Polly, Annie, Elizabeth, Catherine, Mary Jane, and perhaps that's where the story should end. What do you think? Do you believe Jack the Ripper was ever identified? Or will this mystery remain unsolved forever? Let me know your theory in the comments below. And if you enjoy deep dives into unsolved cases, forgotten crimes, and mysteries history never answered, Subscribe to this channel for more unsolved historical mysteries, because we've only just opened the file.